Keith Smith in the house. When the program starts, four guys shooting the you-know-what about something that we absolutely love, and that's real estate and business here in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Kyle Irvin, hello. We love you, Kyle Irvin. Karen Wolf, the good doctor, welcome to the program. Bill McChesney, the mayor of McIntyre. Tracy Green, Bob Yarborough in Redfields. Rob Hubbard over there at City Hall. Our buddy Jesse Rutherford from the Nelson County Board of Supervisors, hello. Michael Pruitt, running for Board of Supervisors in Albemarle County, hello. Nikki Chambliss, Keller Williams' finest. Mayor Snook, hello. Georgia Gilmer. Shirley McNutty. Jamie Turner loves watching the program. John Snow, a belated birthday to you. Danny O'Day, Scott Hughes, Sandra McDaniel, just to name a few. Ray Cadell, hello. We got a handful of firms watching. J-Dubs, things look good on our end. We can rock and roll, my friend, when you are ready to go. Good Wednesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and this is Real Talk with Keith Smith. It's good to connect with you on the I Love Seville Network with the show today presented by Ross Mortgage. Chatting real estate here in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. That is what we do on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Today's show is going to feature a guy whose star power is quite significant. Joshua Tracy is in the house. Dude is crushing it in real estate. We'll introduce you to Josh Tracy of Real Estate 3, and then we'll talk trends, maybe the luxury market, where rates could head. I think we're certainly seeing a rate hike on the near horizon as data continues to matriculate in to Wall Street and across the media outlets we follow. We'll give props to Judah Wickower for being the man behind the scenes. And I think on that note, we can go to the studio camera in a four-shot and say good Wednesday morning to the boys. What's up, fellas?
Hello, hello.
It's nice to see you.
Yeah. What's happening?
Morning, fellas.
Yeah.
Fellas.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, look at a good-looking dude that is right there. What an awesome-looking guy.
Likewise, guys.
Thank you, thank you. So we usually kick the show off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, life's passions, things you love to do, and where you're from.
So my name is Josh Tracy. I am born and raised in Charlottesville, Virginia. Spent my formative years in North Garden until the end of elementary school, then kind of lived over on the Key West neighborhood side of town out by Pantops.
Nice.
Stuck around for UVA, worked in the local restaurants here, and been in real estate for about creeping up on 6 years now at this point, and it's a real good fit for me. I enjoy it a lot. As far as what I like to do, I love all types of outdoor sports, and try to get out and have little mini adventures as much as possible. Mountain biking, whitewater kayaking, rock climbing, trail running, skiing and snowboarding in the winter, all that good stuff. And Charlottesville is probably most known for the mountain biking, but all those other activities are within pretty close striking range to a lot of good destinations as well.
I've run into you in four different scenarios, all different. I've ran into you first, I believe, in the restaurant scene. Second, I ran into you randomly on a mountain biking trail at Walnut Creek. Third, I ran into you just as you were getting into the business with Real Estate 3, and immediately 6 years ago, I think everyone could tell that you were absolutely going to crush it. And then the fourth time I ran into you, and just like you being a goodwill stakeholder for the community and just singing the praises of Charlottesville. And every single time, Josh, I sincerely mean this, I've just been incredibly impressed with the energy, the positivity, your zest for life. I see why you have been successful. Why don't you highlight the last couple years, the momentum you've built here in real estate?
So, like a lot of real estate agents who get into the business, the first year or two are kind of slow, and then as you get your feet under you and all of the seeds that you've planted with past clients and customers start to come to fruition. And then I kind of was pretty well established at the beginning of the pandemic, and that was actually really where everything took off for me a lot. And all of a sudden I was having 5, 6, 7 properties under contract at the same time, and just staying really busy throughout that entire period. And you guys were around for it. It was a mad rush to get into a house, especially with those 3% rates floating around. When are we going to see those again, Scott?
Never. We will never see those again.
And then at this point, probably 80 or 90% of my business is just referrals. It's people that I've taken good care of in the past, passing along my name and saying, hey, I've got somebody else that you should talk to. And it's never too early to start talking to somebody and figure out what their goals are.
Referrals matter.
Yep.
And I'm glad to hear that because this is what we do, right? You help somebody reaches out to you. I was a few minutes late because I'm helping a client sell a house in La Jolla, California, of all places, right? And it was a referral, right, from different folks that they needed some help to find somebody out there. But pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, what's the biggest change, right? What has changed the most in your business and how you conduct business?
I don't know if there's any particular thing about how I personally conduct business. It's more just keeping up with all the people and making sure that I'm taking good care of everybody. And kind of like setting priority lists to say like who's at the top of a to-do list for today, for example.
So you're a bit of a rock star because to Jerry's point, I'm taking a look at a couple of listings you've got. You've got a few listings with the one in front of them, not 100, but a million.
Yeah.
Talk about them for a little bit.
So the listing that I actually just flipped a switch on Sunday is really close to Charlottesville High School. It's a really incredible property right off Meadowbrook Heights Road. It's almost an acre at the back of Warren Lane, and it is 4,600 square foot, 5 beds, 3.5 baths. It's been renovated and updated, built in 1952, but it's really private. It feels a lot like an Albemarle County property. You would almost barely know that you're in the city. And then the beautiful thing about that property is it's walkable to so many things. I was looking at it on the map, and I actually kind of went around to the neighborhoods and went on some of the trails just to kind of get some B-roll footage. And I ran into a map over by Charlottesville High School, kind of close to the Botanical Garden, and it just showed perfectly. On one side, you got Whole Foods and the Rivanna Trail that comes through. On the north end of a neighborhood, you've got Greenbrier Park, which is one of the prettiest sections of trail coming through there. On the south side, you kind of have the old Suicide Hill, wherever I still kind of miss that hill. I used to go sledding out there in the winter. Now it's actually a suicide hill because the John Warner Parkway is at the bottom. So that's on one side, and that's going to be the home of the future Botanical Garden. That's also the skate park, which has been a real asset to the community. So anybody that has kids that are into that kind of stuff or get into it, like they could ride a bike over there, walk over there with a skateboard in 10 minutes. And I don't know if you guys, you're mountain biking.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the Triangle Trails that are over behind the fire department?
No idea.
So the Triangle Trails are actually purpose-built one-way downhill with a bunch of jumps.
Really?
So
who built those?
I'm not even sure who built them, but I think it's on. It's got signage on the McIntyre Park side.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure what the ownership of the land is. It's got to be public because it's a bike trail, and it's kind of like it's squeezed in right between the Greenbrier neighborhood and the bypass.
Okay.
It's just a little sliver, but you can ride a paved road up to the top, and then you gain a little elevation, and then one way downhill with a bunch of little jumps, and that's kind of the big trend in mountain biking is they're building all these flow trails.
Oh yeah, I know the flow trail well.
And on a really good flow trail, it kind of feels like you're going downhill the whole time.
One of the reasons I enjoy, and Scott, you jump in here with your first take here. One of the reasons I enjoy Pretty Creek and Walnut Creek is there's a lot of flow on those trails, Josh. And I very much enjoy biking those. Scott Morse is in the house. James Watson has given Joshua Tracy some props right now. A handful of your colleagues from Real Estate 3, from Nest, from Keller Williams, and Logan Foster watching the program as we speak. The Fed's July minutes will be posted and published at 2 p.m. Eastern today. Folks are watching those notes from July closely. A lot of the data that's been coming out over the last week or so has come in at maybe a smidge warmer than we anticipated. and some folks are saying we may need a Q4 rate hike here. But you're the expert here. Anywhere you want to go?
I don't think
on
we
this
get
topic.
a Q4 rate hike, but I do think we potentially are higher for longer, meaning they don't cut as steeply going into next year as we might have hoped, but they're going to cut. So there's some other dynamics here. One of them is the U.S. 10-year is usually 2% above inflation. So I was saying that maybe we should be around 4.25 before we actually got there. Now we're there. There's people calling for a 5 spot on the 10-year. I think that's dangerous for what we do. But at the same time, I don't know if we get there, how long it could conceivably stay there without some. I'm still of the opinion that something's going to break.
Seriously break.
And that's just the world we're living. We've been in a zero rate environment for too long for things to function fluidly at this 5% level.
First sizzle reel right there. Dean Russell, your colleague watching the program. Chad Wood, one of Western Albemarle's finest graduates watching the program. Holly Foster and Henrico, Andrea Akers, just to name a few. Keith, I want you to jump in the mix here. I mean, maybe we're seeing a little bit of cause for concern with regional banks as Fitch continues to downgrade banks and offer some pause for concern here.
So I do want to jump in, go back to Scott's comment on the Treasury side of the house, because I think he's right. I think at the end of somewhere in the first quarter of next year, you're going to start seeing those things dropping down, which is going to impact the 30-year mortgage. Look, you have these failures or these hiccups on these regional banks. You've got to take a look at why, right? So is this more they made bad mortgage loans or something like that? Generally what they are is they're usually tied to made too many commercial loans, and they probably did not, like the other banks, have enough reserve in it, because to the point it went from 0 to 5%. As the recovering developer in the room, I used to borrow money based on the Fed rate. And if you did not build into your pro forma some sort of fudge factor that the rates were going to go up, you're going to get held, to the fire. So I think that's might be going on, but I really haven't had a chance to take a deep dive into why. I think when the 30-year mortgage folks start having problems, that's when the red flag's going to go up. I think this is more very specific to a certain type of loan.
23-year high yesterday.
I think
On the 30-year.
I think the
Yeah,
30-year is more a symptom rather than the disease. I think the disease is going to fix itself in the banking system. I mean, you've got the Mortgage Bankers Association of America forecasting a 5.9% in fourth quarter 30-year fixed. You've got Goldman Sachs forecasting 6.4 in the fourth quarter, 5.9 in the first quarter. I mean, that's higher than where I was hoping or thinking that we would be at this stage. But then again, we also, I go back to what I've said all along, in that inflation got here, it took longer for inflation to get here than everyone who was screaming when we were printing the money that it was going to. It took 18 months, and we're less than, we're roughly 12 months into the big hiking cycle at this point. So I just don't think it's taken effect yet. I think we're going to see the results, we're just not there.
That's the second sizzle reel right there. Judah Wickhauer. Let's get Josh Tracy in the mix here. How have you seen escalating rates impact what you do professionally?
Oof, it is, definitely cooling a lot of buyer sentiment. It's just so much more expensive on a monthly rate to find a house. But again, I think I remember asking another realtor when I was first getting into the business, and he said, what do you think about this? How do you like it? It's like, it's good business. People want to move. So sometimes people want to move, and sometimes they have to move. And as long as you are helping those people kind of make the right decision through that process, you'll sort of have enough business. But for them personally, it really, I saw a lot of people reduce their budget by $100,000 or $200,000 from what they were initially looking at.
But they
And
typically
because of the
buy
payments.
by the monthly payment.
And their
Because they're buying by the monthly
expectations
payment.
of what
Yep.
they saw they could get a house for 3 years ago versus what that same cost does for them. There's a level of shock,
Sticker
legitimate-
shock.
not shock, like quality shock.
Yeah.
Like they're going, I thought, I want a 3-2 with 5 acres of land, and all of a sudden, like, you're showing
Rolling,
me,
don't have to paint, don't have to do
a
nothing.
townhouse in Crozet. Like, what? These are planets apart.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with a first-time homebuyer last night, and I gave him, here's a couple of lenders you can call, and told him, you need to brace yourself because you may have some sticker shock if you haven't spoken to them even in 6 months. And I also told him that, think carefully about what you want in a house because, if your budget's $400 and you really want to be in Charlottesville, that might be a townhouse instead of a detached house. So I think that people are maybe coming around to the idea of a townhouse a little bit more if they want to be close into Charlottesville and they're at a certain price point.
As of yesterday,
Yeah.
single-family detached, no new construction in the city of Charlottesville, the median sales price is $586. So 400 is not even close.
I believe it.
Josh
Yeah.
Ditmars in Eugene, Oregon, giving Josh Tracy some props right now. We
Eugene.
got
Hey, John.
Eugene, or is it John? John Ditmars' fault? Yeah, John Ditmars, sorry. Giving Josh Tracy some props over here from Eugene, Oregon. Questions and comments are coming in fast and furious. Viewers and listeners, you can ask the panel of experts questions or give them props by putting your thoughts in the feed. We'll relay them live on air. John Blair watching in Stanton. This from Eric Thompson. We've covered this, but still it's a topic that comes up. What does everyone think of large companies buying up single-family homes and turning them around to rent them across the country? Like this article from Tampa, a Wall Street behemoth plans to spend $1 billion in Tampa Bay's hobbled housing market, dispatching teams of brokers to scour neighborhoods and buy hundreds of homes a month. And he's talking about Blackstone and $1 billion. I don't want to speak for you guys. You're the experts. I know this happens. It's not happening in Central Virginia. We're not seeing this in Central Virginia. Maybe because the inventory is so costly in Central Virginia, and there's so few of the inventory in Central
Well,
Virginia.
that's the second.
And-
the second is
Yeah.
primarily
And
it.
Blackstone just was forced to offload a
ton.
huge amount of their portfolio because of their investors were trying to pull back cash out of their REIT programs. So, for some of them, it'll be more sustainable than others. But again, it's not happening here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just those type of places work in Phoenix, Las Vegas, where there's just a lot of new construction. Tampa and Florida is a big
And the population is like
yeah.
so much. We're not talking 60,000
Yeah.
people. We're talking 3 million.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at right now of what has closed in the last 7 days, and none of them are typically like they're LLCs that buy them or something like that. So I'm like perusing on who the actual buyer is, and so every one of the ones that just sold in this last 7 days are generally very few cashes now. Cashes seem to be walking down a little bit, which is a bit surprising, but it seems to be conventional mortgages.
This question, I'll throw this to Josh to start. How many of your buyers are sitting on the sidelines with the hopes that either inventory will uptick or rates will downtick?
Out of the buyers that I have, there's probably it's more of a just the ones personally that I've got at the moment, it's more waiting for the right property to come
Yeah.
along that checks all the boxes, and the motivation factor being a little bit lower. So they're not going to jump on a property because they have to. They're in a situation that they're okay where they're at now. And I'm not pressuring them to move anytime soon either until we find the right place. So it's kind of more of a matter of lower inventory. But one of the most recent examples I can think of, somebody definitely, probably, maybe could have gone into this property and it was just a little bit over budget, and if the interest rate had been at 5.9%, the monthly payment might have made more sense for them, and they would have gone ahead.
But you would have been competing against a ton of folks.
Yeah, this one was had a couple. There wasn't as much competition because it was a little further outside of Charlottesville, so there wasn't quite a stampede. But
So,
it
going
still
a-
came down to the monthly payment.
Going a little further out of the area and looking for something that's got some deferred maintenance attached to it. I'm doing more 203K and Home Possible renovation product than ever before, and it does a couple different things. One, you're increasing the value of the property. So as we do get more inventory that comes available, if you want to turn around and sell this in 2 or 3 years, you're going to be in a position where you wouldn't normally be if you went in and, say, bought something that was already ready. It's not going to get the same amount of appreciation as you have the opportunity for if you can find something that you can both grow into to make fit your needs, at a little better price point just because it's a little further away as well.
That's excellent. That should be out there. That's a third piece of ammunition right there for you, Judah Wickower. Have you
But do you-
seen? Go ahead.
Do you honest?
I've kind of been advising people for the same thing. If they're at a more limited budget, it's like, listen, you're not going to get the perfect condition house, because if it's in perfect condition, it's
Sure.
definitely going to get multiple offers.
If you love
I
it,
call
everybody loves it.
I call it the ugly duckling. You should go after the ugly duckling, because you can turn it into a beautiful swan over the course of years, but just get yourself in the door. Even if you have to, pay something that's at the max of your budget, theoretically, we're going to see maybe just, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever, we're going to see some lower rates. You'll get a chance to refinance, maybe make some PMI go away, especially if you have made enough improvements in the meantime that it possibly justifies a higher appraisal price on top of time in the market.
What do you think, Keith Smith?
So, do you honestly, I'm looking you dead in the face, do you honestly think inventory is going to get better anytime soon? And if so, what's your kind of crystal ball, we should get them out, prediction on that? And it's kind of a loaded question because I got a backside to this, but what do you think?
I mean, it is, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of sellers on the sideline, but if it would make a lateral move, let's say I want to move from the west side of Albemarle County to the east side, but take the same price house, they're just looking at such a jump in what their mortgage payment is that they're unwilling to do it, and they're unwilling to put their house on the market.
Well, I agree with Jerry wholeheartedly.
It's not just chilling on buyers, it's also chilling on the sellers as well.
I pushed back a little bit initially with Jerry, but damn it, he's right. This 2 to 3% is keeping a lot of people out of the market, and so the inventory is just going to be further squelched. But I just took a look this morning. Greene County, just from June 30th to today, the sales price, the median sales price jumped $14,000, 4%. So on June 30th, it was $385. It's now $399. Just
Wow.
real short of $400,000. So it's a 4% jump in 45 days. Now those contracts were written, 30, 45 days ago, that kind of thing. But my point is I don't think inventory is going to get up, but prices are going to still grow. They might be single digits, right?
Yeah.
But they're still going to grow. So your buyer's chasing this ever increasing value. So my personal opinion is I think getting into it sooner than later is always a better choice.
Yeah. And I've been out there and going on some tours with new builders, Atlantic Homes, Greenwood Homes, Southern Development, and just looking at their models because, when there's no inventory sometimes, and people that I have in particular on a not as motivated timeline, new construction might be a good route for them. So let me see what's actually coming soon, available before the end of a year. But in talking to some of their sales rep, it's like, this is the price right now. Next year, this same detached house that's getting built up in North Point might be $50,000 more.
I'm glad you brought that up because Woody Fincham and I on the first Monday of next month, we're actually going to do a comparison, new construction versus existing, because that's what's happening. If I can't buy something at 700, 800, whatever that number is, or 600, I might as well just wait because I've got the capital to do it.
Yeah.
Prophet Ridge, another neighborhood that's got some momentum behind it. John Kerber, Dominion Custom Homes, making moves right there. Scotty Moe has got some questions coming in from Grayson, who's watching in North Downtown. Grayson, you ask intelligent questions, and we very much appreciate them, sir. And any viewer and listener can ask a question. Just put it in the feed, and I will relay it live on air. This is for Scott specifically. If the Mortgage Bankers Association is right with their prediction of rates in the fives in the fourth quarter of this year, Scott Morris, do you predict that rates will drop in the first and second quarter as well?
Yes, but not as significantly because I don't think the severity of the cuts are going to come in the way we think they are. I think they're going to be higher for longer. And this also is driving the assumption that something either breaks or they change their forecast in the dot plot in the November meeting towards a lower rate environment going into 2024. I think that inventory really is going to take until 2025 to come back. I think next year is going to be pretty tough, and a lot of it is going to be rate driven as far as making people adopt the mindset to transition from a sub 4% mortgage to, say, a 5% mortgage or 5.5% mortgage. And it's not going to happen as quickly as one would like. And
Lonnie Murray, hello,
one
Bellamy
being
Brown.
one of everybody sitting at this table.
I think you're on this. You know what this is? This is a branding and perception problem. It is a branding and perception problem. The people that secured 2s and 3 and 4% mortgages are literally saying the perception of a 7 or a 7.5% mortgage with a 3%, 4% delta
But there's
is scaring me.
There's a true affordability problem there. All right, we're sitting on, and we talk about this as well, more equity than the U.S. homeowner has ever had in the history of ever.
Right.
And at the same time, it's a paper tiger until they can execute it. And what it's going to take for them to make sense of the transition is a lower 30-year fixed rate.
For sure. Paper tiger means it's paper money. It's not actual net worth is what he's talking about right there until you sell your house. He makes a good point.
Yeah, it's like the stock market, right? You don't make money until you pull it out of the stock market. Otherwise, it's just numbers on that end of it. But, we're having conversations with sellers at the table that they're actually freaking out now about this 2 or 3% because they have to move, right? And they have the equity, which is great, right? They'll pull in some equity, but they're not balancing out. They're not on the positive side when they're trying to go buy because now they're going to have to make compromises based on their monthly payment. I mean, on the seller side, when you're sitting at the kitchen table, are you hearing any of those kind of conversations? What kind of conversations are you hearing?
Yeah,
On the seller table?
the sellers that I'm talking to, and sort of like, where's the next listing going to be coming from?
Yeah.
They sort of have like a real driving decision behind why they need to move. So it's sort of like, well, I have to move, but typically they haven't. They're not talking to me 2 or 3 years after they purchased. So they're, they do have a lot more equity.
Yeah, sure.
In their property, so they're going to be okay, and they kind of understand. That's really getting them to come around and understand, like, this is going to be your monthly payment going forward. But if they are able to put a little bit more down, at least the monthly payment comes down some. So
I've learned with 3.5 decades of doing this, the buyers come to the market reality way faster than the sellers.
Yeah.
Right, and the sellers tend to usually follow a little bit behind. I just took a look this morning because I knew you had a couple of $1 million plus listings.
Yep.
And unless Jerry's got a real important question over there, I kind of wanted to throw
Let's do it.
I kind of want to throw a hand grenade in the middle of the table and see who's willing to dive on it or not. So I took a look at, there's 61 homes in our car footprint that's $1 million and up for sale.
61 active?
61 actives.
Okay. Is that right?
This is everything. This is Charlottesville, Albemarle,
Okay.
Green. This is the whole car footprint. Unless the spreadsheet is wrong, which I believe it's right. But a third of them are from agents from outside of our markets. Tell me how you feel about that. Is that a good thing, bad
interesting.
thing?
So.
And it's funny, before you answer it,
That's
I took
new
a look at
information.
lower price points. You don't see as much. But
You should define what out of the market it means.
So there's listings, and you look at the listing numbers, these are bright. These are Northern Virginia MLS numbers. They start with a V, right, versus
Right.
just a regular number. So I just did a quick count, and out of 61, 20 of them were out of the market area.
I think for the upper market like that, by the time you get into that price point, you've got an established relationship with a realtor. And maybe if they were moving here from elsewhere, purchased a $1 million property, now it's a few years later and they need to move again, they're just going with the agent that was outside the area. I don't know, that's maybe my best guess.
But these are listings.
So even on the listing side,
Yeah.
but I guess that's the other good question would sort of be like on the map, where are these? So sometimes you see this a lot in Madison County. If it's on Madison County, you could have a Charlottesville agent or you could have a Culpeper agent. And the Culpeper agent would
Louisa,
be on the
Albemarle,
right.
Charlottesville, Albemarle, Flavanna, Green.
I feel like there's
Green.
definitely some crossover between Richmond as well. So if you're on that east side of town.
You want to touch this topic,
and,
Scott?
The other thing, you know, like there's some agents in the Real Estate 3 office that are now also getting a Richmond Association joining up there so that they can sell property on that side as well.
I just think from our perspective, I've never seen as many agents in the marketplace as I ever have. And now we're having agents from outside of our area that are trying to be experts in the area that we're experts at. So I'm just curious.
Well, here's another theory. Because inventory is so low,
That's exactly
and realtors aren't
That's
getting
what I
as
think
many
it is.
listings
That's
as they
exactly
normally have,
They're traveling further.
they're traveling further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I know some
when
other
you're
agents
doing-
that are taking listings an hour away. Normally for me, the line is 45 minutes. If I have to drive
Christy
1
Beck-
hour, I might refer it to somebody else.
Christy Beck came on the show and says she's doing listings in Williamsburg
Yeah.
from Lake. She lives in Lake Monticello.
Yeah. To your point, 4 million, 2 million, 3 million. So once you start getting into these,
The commission justifies it.
the commission justifies it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because you know, we're supposed to be experts in our marketplace, and I find it hard somebody from Northern Virginia to be an expert in Havana County at 1.5 million.
Devil's advocate for the panel.
I'm just playing.
You guys are the experts. I'm just setting the pace and keeping the conversation going. The digital nature of what realtors do has democratized the profession because the content and the knowledge is as readily available as ever before. Because of this digital democratized nature of real estate, can the agent become more of an expert outside their domain than ever before?
Sure, some people can, but some people are donkeys. And
Did you say donkeys?
Yeah.
and I mean, there's recently had
She always does.
an agent from
It could be elephants,
the
too, you
Reston
know.
area listed a horse farm. It's like a 10-acre farm in Culpeper for probably $300,000 over what it should have been at. And then, had concerns from the multiple buyers agents about appraisals, everything else. It didn't appraise. And she's like, I know the value of this property. It's like, clearly you don't. If everyone had this concern going into this minus you, and you don't have any comps when asked for them, then, the problem is there. But I think you're going to get that a little bit of everywhere. Like for people, a property in Fluvanna, somebody who does the work, understands the comps and where the value is coming from, they can go work anywhere. What difference does that make? I mean,
Within the state of Virginia.
Or wherever they're licensed.
Yeah.
Look, the monster that the
I mean, you're moving property in La Jolla, California right now.
Sarah
yeah.
Reynolds and
I wanted-
Yeah.
and her team.
But I'm doing it as a referral, seeing that's the difference, right? For the price that's going to sell for, I could go take my California license, but I wouldn't do that because we interviewed a dozen real estate agents. Some of the internet-based, that's what Jerry's talking about. Ultimately, we're going to use a local La Jolla agent that's been there for 30 years, knows all the connections, knows all the right people, because people matter.
Absolutely.
Relationships
Yeah.
matter in this end of it, and a beautiful, in this particular location, a beautiful drone pictures, and it's not going to sell this house. It's going to be, hey, Keith, I got a buyer, and that's what this is going to happen. But we, Yona and I, if I have something going on in Northern Virginia for $4 million, I'm going to find a referral agent. I'm not an expert in Northern Virginia. Maybe a couple of bars up there. might
Dan
be
Snyder
nice.
could use some help. He's having
He
trouble.
just cut his price.
Yeah, he's having some tough times at the $49.5 million price point.
He cut his
I was gonna
price.
say, is it
Dan
still
Snyder.
50 million? He only knocked off 500?
He
Gotcha.
cut his price. The former owner of the Commanders, and the talk is they may rebrand back to the Redskins here. Time will tell. Neil Williamson is watching the show and giving you guys props right now. This question has come into the mix, and it's a very good one from Kelsey. Kelsey is watching in Keswick, and she says, do you see co-listing becoming a larger portion of the market as inventory and competition gets tighter than ever before? That's a great question. Who wants to tackle that one?
Well, I could probably jump on it right now because the property that we have listed next to Charlottesville High School is co-listed with Chris Kabash of Avenue Realty right now. It was, at the seller's request, to have both of us, and we're happy to work together on that. And
So
I've
let's-
seen
let's-
other co-listings as well. And sometimes people just want extra service, and sometimes it's might be from a team, and so I don't know. But
So
yeah,
let's
what
talk
do you
about
think?
what co-listing is, right? So these are two different firms,
Yep.
right? This is not two different agents within one firm, right? So you are co-listing with a completely different firm.
Avenue and Real
Correct.
Estate 3.
And I know the gentleman speaking, he focuses a lot on commercial, right? So he
And
has-
business brokerage.
and business broker. So he brings a set of tools to the table that I'm sure you have, but maybe not as deep as what Chris has on that end of it. So you're going to probably start seeing that. Straight up, I'm going to ask this question: how many agents you think are going to be in our market this time next year?
What was the stat again from the most recent drop off? I mean, I want to say that nationally, 60,000 agents alone have
Actually,
dropped
you've
down.
got the 6 inverted.
Okay,
It's 90.
90. How about that?
Well, that's out of
Yeah.
1.5 million. But in our market,
And then there's also sort of the question of the active agents versus the one that maybe just do a couple deals a year.
Tommy Brannick says
And
all the time,
I-
10% of the agents do 90% of the business.
Yeah.
and I would say that 10% is getting closer to 5%.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the numbers
And,
this morning.
furthermore, I can think of another 3 or 4 agents off the top of my head that only keep their real estate license because they're interested in investing and they just want to be able to have access to the
Sure.
now central lock boxes to let themselves into the property so that they don't have to go and bother me or somebody else. So, yeah,
I think we're gonna be between 30 to
reduction of
40%.
listings is definitely pushing a lot of people out, and the same for the mortgage industry as well. I've definitely heard of some folks migrating into other industries recently.
You excited about real estate right now?
I am. I love it.
Amen.
It's a crazy way to make a living,
Amen.
but I love it. Yeah.
I'm more excited about the market now than I've been for years.
I
Yeah.
think the reduction in the mortgage brokers and the realtors is going to be great news for all you guys at this table, because you guys are professionals that grind and get stuff done, and you provide customer service that keeps your business and your deal flow going. I think the reduction in agents and the mortgage brokers, it's going to impact the hobbyists, the people that, like you said, want to tour some homes, or they want to put on their LinkedIn or their Facebook that this is what I do professionally, or want to invest themselves. They're going to cut. And what is it, 1,200 agents in car? 1250?
I think the number of agents close to 1,000.
Uh-huh.
That's total, total folks that are members that are in it. But just for the sake of an argument of a talk show, let's call it 1,000.
This time next year, if we put the over-under at 700,
I think 800 is the number.
you're
8 to
taking
850.
less. You'll take under 800.
I think 8 to 815. 8 to 850 this time.
When is
The
license
renewals.
renewal? Yeah,
October.
that's what I'm asking. When
It's
is
October.
that? October?
That's when we're going to know. And put the renewal perspective, the amount of money in perspective.
Well, actually, and I'll jump in, that's actually not the most expensive part. The most expensive part is your monthly and quarterly MLS dues, right?
Yeah.
That's really the chunk of money.
How much does it cost an agent to run a business from start to finish with renewals and dues?
Depends on who you talk to. It's somewhere between
4 and 5K.
3 to 5K, depending.
Okay,
Yeah.
3 to 5K. Let's call that $4,000. What other profession in America can you have a business for $4,000 a year?
Well, that's just that end of it. Then there's other parts to it, like your cell phone, the operating
yeah, but
expenses.
a person's going to have a cell phone regardless.
Yeah, yeah.
A person's going to have a car regardless. You basically have a profession where it's $4,000 a year to have a business.
So I'm going to get myself into trouble. By the way, I do that regularly.
That's where you say the barrier of
That's where the
entry.
interesting shows come from.
Yeah, that's right.
Barrier of entry is low,
Yep.
but to be a rock star at it, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's hard. It requires a ton of skills to do that. And that's part of why I'm excited about what's going forward, because, what the market we're currently in and the market we're going to probably get into, you've got to have some skills to get deals across the table. I tell clients all the time, the easy part is getting it under contract, right? The hard part is getting
It's
it
just the
closed.
beginning. Yep.
Right? Is that not true?
Yeah, and even after the fact, I mean, I still have past clients calling me to say, hey, I needed a contractor to fix up this thing. I know we bought the house last year, but can you refer somebody? So I'll send out that referral, and it's kind of like a constantly ongoing thing.
We've got a listing that's under contract we're trying to sell. Just to talk about that, we had the carpet people go through, actually the client had the carpet people to clean up the house because it's closing today, and we got pictures from next door neighbors, and they left all the doors wide open. At 10 o'clock at night, my wife and I are bolting over there in a car to make sure that it's closed up and all that stuff. Because
Why did they do that?
It's odd.
They're
Is
contract.
this
they're
the
contractors.
Donkey Kong?
They're contractors. They're contractors. Right, Scott?
Yeah.
Contractors.
Yeah.
This question's come in from Spencer for the panel. Josh, why don't you start with this one? How many of the deals that have you done in the last year have not had a home inspection or an appraisal?
A third, maybe?
A third?
Yeah.
On both? Or what are you saying more of?
So I don't even know if I want to share this strategy because people might be listening in and steal it. But if you have the time to have a verbal consultation going through the property by a home inspector, you might not get the full 40 to 50
The walk and
page
talk.
report. The walk and talk.
Yeah.
You can get them to raise all the red or yellow flags with the property and determine, all right, I can still proceed with this. I've gotten my home inspection done, but I'm going to waive it on the contract. And then you can feel good about putting an offer in, but waiving the home inspection, which is going to increase the likelihood of your offer getting accepted if you're competing against, 5 other people, 10 other people. And then as far as cash, this is actually something I've seen a fair amount also. You're writing the offer as cash. You might be showing proof of funds, but in the background, you're still getting a home loan.
Explain that,
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't understand how that can happen.
So it's somewhere in paragraph 5 of the
Look at
purchase
you.
contract
Look at you.
for
Dude's a pro, man.
that you have the standard purchase contract for a residence. You have the right to seek alternate financing, but if that doesn't go through, you don't have your normal off-ramp to exit the contract. You still have to proceed with a cash purchase. So if you're purchasing a $500,000 house and you have $500,000 to show in a brokerage account or what have you, you can get the offer accepted that way. And if you've got 30 days, and how quick are you getting loans done nowadays, Scott?
I can close in less than 21 days.
Nice. So you've usually got time, especially if you have somebody queued up ahead of time and all your financials are already in, then you get a mortgage, and as long as the money shows up at the closing table, the seller doesn't care how you got there. You just close that way.
Except if all of a sudden
Yep.
they get an appraisal, because now they got to get an
Yep.
appraisal, and the appraisal doesn't match the contract, and then we've got a whole issue.
If you've also shown that proof of funds, theoretically,
Yeah.
you've also been explained what if
Yeah.
this hypothetical scenario happens, and you're going to have to, per the terms of a contract, you would have to come out of pocket, whatever the difference is, if it's a lower appraisal value and the agreed upon purchase price.
So if you're a seller out there, one of the things
And-
we do is we cross that out. We cross that language out. When if it's
Yeah.
a cash deal, then it's a cash deal. We
Yeah.
cross all that language out. We get everybody to sign off on it. And the reason you do that is because then if they want to change it, they got to come back and we got to amend the contract. Everybody's got to say yes to it. I've seen those go sideways when an appraisals come in that are below that. Now all of a sudden the buyer doesn't want to buy because I'm overpaying or whatever
Yeah.
it is. It becomes a real relational problem at that particular point. So that's a little hint on that.
The other, I was doing some due diligence on a listing before a presentation to get the house, and I noticed that the seller of that property, the last MLS listing showed that it was a cash purchase. But then I go into my RPR and I say, oh, there was a mortgage originated the same day as the closing day. So according to the Charlottesville MLS records, which goes into the Virginia and the national numbers as well, that was a cash purchase. So I think I've heard the stat, maybe even on this show, 47% of the sales in the city were cash purchases, but that's according to the MLS data, when in actuality there's a
Smoke and
mortgage
mirrors.
behind that as well.
Yeah.
So that may be skewing some of the numbers to that effect.
Tim
But,
Robinson, watching the program, he's giving you props. He's the owner of Win Home Inspection here in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Patty Rowe,
Hey,
hello.
Tim.
We love you, Patty, when you watch the program. Valerie Young, hello. Welcome to the show. Viewers and listeners, if you have any comments, put them in the feed. Travis Hackworth is watching in Danville. Todd Raft, a real estate investor, watching the program. Aaron King, one of Western Albemarle's finest graduates as well. Aaron, I owe you an email intro that will come. Ray Cadell, hello.
Hey, Ray.
Woody Fincham, hello. Thank you kindly for watching us. Todd Rath, jump in the mix. Jason Howard, jump in the mix as well. Mark Lickman, your boy over there, my boy, Fluvanna County's finest, watching the program. Scott, what's on the brain over there?
So also to Josh's point, and to the question that came earlier about lack of appraisals, one of the things I often get asked is what triggers an appraisal waiver. The borrower's putting down this much money, why aren't they getting it? Well, let's say it's been 20 years since the value on this property was last recorded. That makes a difference. The last recorded appraised value with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the USPS address, and the amount of money down are all factors into what's going to trigger that appraisal waiver. So just because they're putting down 20% or 50%, in fact, I saw a 911 message inside of like a mortgage group the other day. Hey, I had good findings with these people putting down 20%. The sellers actually were willing to lower the appraised value by $10,000, and we lost our appraisal waiver. When I raise it back up, I get the waiver again. What should I do? And that's how soft these things can be, because there's not a human involvement. It's literally an algorithm that's triggering it. So sometimes all the magic is there to make it happen, and sometimes it's not.
City of Charlottesville, single-family detached, year-to-date, there was 202 sold, 80 of them were cash. I'm not smart enough to do the percentage, but out of 202 sales, 80 of them were cash. That's the city of Charlottesville.
Jeff Gaffney, the CEO of Real Estate 3, giving Joshua Tracy some props here, calling him an absolute superstar. John Smith, watching the program right now, he is saying great info from this group and this panel here. I see 6 firms on the show right now. Keith Smith, this question is a good one for you. The new construction inventory seems to have ground to an absolute halt nationally.
Yeah.
This particular gentleman who's asked to remain on the DL and anonymous says 1.4 million homes nationally are being built now when the estimate is a need of 2.1 to 2.2 homes nationally. Can Keith put in perspective what's happening in Central Virginia?
Yeah, so we had a spike. Now we're starting to level off a little bit. And we're going to do more of this on the first Monday of September with Woody. We're going to kind of take a look into this a little bit. But it's kind of hit a plateau. Why has that happened? Well, it's probably for several reasons. One is inventories. They're running out of inventory too, like lot inventory. They're also, some of the big builders are turning the valve down a little bit, right? They don't want to overbuild or outpace their production or outpace their inventory. So they're kind of playing with the valve a little bit. I've seen that happen over the decades. They kind of...
Dirt's expensive, labor's expensive, red tape is still prevalent, and if they throttle the inventory production, the values of the homes that they do create sell at top dollar. Scotty Moe.
So everything that I've read in the last several months has really been targeted towards all the publicly traded companies, the D.R. Hortons, the Ryan Homes, the...
Stanley Martin Homes, one of the great sponsors of this show.
They are all wide open for the next 3 years. It is the smaller and mid-sized builders who need regional bank financing, where there's already been a credit tightening and a lack of lot inventory for them to build, purchase, and then approve a small to mid-sized subdivision in different municipalities. That's where everything is getting turned off. The big builders are like, let gas open, let's go, and everything below them has basically been ground to a stop.
Yeah, so that's the leftover of 2008 to 2010. So I lost $17 million between 2008 and 2010. And what happened was the small to medium guy just went away, right? The bigger companies, the Stanley Martins, so forth and so on, have enough capital, have enough runway to kind of play the game for 4 to 6 years. Scott's spot on. You know, the resurgence of the smaller developer and builders kind of made its way back. It is now going to start working its way down, because instead of having $0 in interest rate or 2%, they're now at whatever. You know, and it's just, you know, when you're borrowing millions of dollars, a couple of few percentage points make a huge difference. So you're 100% right. That buyer and developers trying to go down. I think some of the bigger guys are also dialing down their stuff a little bit, just not to run out of inventory, right? And they're really sharp people. And they look, this is what path I've got coming, this is my inventory, this is my resources. So they'll start dialing it down a little bit.
Jerry Taylor, watching the program on Scott's page. Jerry Taylor says, great work, guys. Hey, Keith. Hey, Scott.
Jerry, what's up, man?
Watching the show. Austin Stone, giving you some props as well. I'm seeing 6 folks from 6 different states here on the feed. Keith, And Josh and Scott, I will get you in the mix on this question from Leslie. What is the role of the realtor when it comes to new construction production and purchasing? Hell of a question. You want to start with that one, Josh?
Well, it's kind of the same as any buyer, namely identifying what do you actually need in a property. What can you live with? And for every purchase, there are some compromises. So I think I've heard you say the term again and again, trusted advisor. So the advisory role also, I can't remember which builder it was, but I want to say 2/3 of a certain builder did not have a buyer agent involved at all, so somebody just walked in off the street and ran into the builder's rep, didn't, sort of maybe...
Into the model home?
Into the model home and, signed a purchase contract.
Something
and,
also, if a realtor partner refers somebody to me, and if I detect any conversation about, hey, we also might be looking at new construction, I really try to circle the wagons with everybody and say, hey, if this is something that you're going to do, don't just walk in somewhere. Make sure you take Josh and Keith with you to go do this, because you'll walk in and they'll tell you that you don't need representation. We don't do that here, or that's not some. Why are you concerned with that? And one layer of protection for you in this process is now gone.
All the production builders have baked in
The commission.
commission.
Yeah.
All you really have to do is say, I'm working with Keith, or I'm working with so-and-so,
Yeah.
and it's done.
The first-time home buyer I was talking to last night, I kind of advised him of that. I said, remember, I'm going to be representing you. At some point, you'll sign off on the official buyer-broker agreement that formalizes that relationship. But in the meantime, as you go to open houses, make sure you say all the other realtors should be asking that question. Are you currently represented by a realtor?
So all the realtors that are watching and all that stuff, keep track, because I'm actually putting together a production builder and a custom builder show, right, where we're going to have a production and a custom, because our representation in the contracts and all that stuff is very different between a custom builder and a production builder. All the local production builders have commissions in their number. You're going to pay it no matter what. Maybe not all the custom guys or gals do.
Yeah, so that might actually be a good opportunity for me to plug another one of my listings. I've got a custom build that is up on top of the mountain, Pigeon Top Trail 4220. That is new construction, proposed detached. That's listed at 1.9 million, but it's going to have incredible views over the Route 810 corridor. You're getting to look at Shenandoah National Park. There's a really beautiful 8-acre lot up there, and in that price is included some of the land clearing that will open up some of the views. Or if you really like the forests, you don't have to have that view. You can have it just in the winter as a winter view. And it actually, I've seen that land in the winter when all the trees were down, or all the leaves were down, and there's actually views in two directions. So there's some back to Charlottesville, and there's some back to the west.
So here's the difference. You've got this listed, which has the listing, the buyer broker in it, and all that stuff.
Yes.
What I'm talking about is clients that are trying to do custom builds.
Yeah.
And each custom build contract is very different.
Yeah.
Right. The production builders are generally the same, right? They're kind of the same on that end of it. So if you're looking to do either one, you definitely need a trusted advisor. Josh definitely knows what he's talking about, because he's listing a custom construction home, which looks awesome on this. So you've got to make sure that you have representation. Otherwise, you're not going to have it.
Josh, you're making some moves here. Good questions coming here from James, who's watching in Short Pump. How's the investor playing in this market for the panel, Jerry? What's the investor doing? Are they still putting money on the street? Are they scooping up the limited inventory? We're seeing some of this in the Richmond market, he says. Who wants to touch that?
I'm going to dive into, I'm pretty dialed into the Richmond market, so I'll let you start first.
Yeah. I'm not sure about I can't really speak to the Richmond market for investments, but what I have seen in the Charlottesville area is there are definitely some investors who were actually sitting on the sidelines all throughout the pandemic, because typically an investor wants to buy it low.
What's the deal?
And or buy it off market if they can. I've actually had probably 3 deals in the last couple of years where I represented the buyer and we went after a property that was off market and made it happen.
Good for you.
What was the process you used for that?
It's mostly just because I'm full-time realtor, so I'm constantly talking to anybody and everybody about real estate, and I hear stuff through the grapevine. And my personal sphere of influence, I run in a lot of different circles. I've got 3 kids that are in different schools, and I've got this whole restaurant world, and then I have the outdoor community, and then I've got the other realtors, and born and raised here in UVA.
And the UVA,
so
yeah, I know, dude. You got a lot covered here.
It's a lot of overlapping circles,
Yeah.
but it makes a big difference, and it kind of, I've got my finger on the pulse and ear to the ground, so I hear about something, and then I remember, oh yeah, I talked to somebody 6 months ago about that. Maybe I should bring
So
that up to them.
that's the exact agent we picked for the La Jolla project instead of the internet, because they were there, they're local,
Yeah.
they know all the people, and at the end of the day, they will do 1,000% job.
Yeah.
So I needed to jump in and make a point
Yeah,
there.
but there were a lot of investors that were just not interested in bidding up properties through the pandemic years. And when interest rates started spiking last year, that was sort of their opportunity, and some of them came off the sideline. And I think I knew some people that had been, holding back some cash reserves, waiting to purchase, but they ended up waiting 2 or 3 years, and hopefully they got some kind of return, and we're not just, keeping all their powder dry. But some of them have come in, and it's hard there because if you're not in a position where you're looking for a cash-on-cash return, and you have to purchase a property as an investment at 7% and then have it,
It just doesn't make sense.
It's like you're breaking even, which is
Right.
not necessarily what an investor is looking for, unless you truly believe in the appreciation over the long term of the area that you're buying in. Some of the other real estate podcasts that I've listened to where people might have, like 10, 20, 50 doors. They're just, buying everything they can get their hands on, and they're well capitalized and have enough runway that they can afford to lose money on a property for the first year or two before it
It's
comes
the long
back
game
up.
for them. Yeah.
And
So
some
it's
of
a-
them want to
it's a
lose
long
money,
game.
right, purposely.
'Cause it
and
helps,
then
right?
As it helps
The
the
write-ups.
tax thing, and also, there's the whole 1031 exchange. I do quite a bit of that.
Yep.
Like, okay, look, this is, we're just swapping money from one parcel to the other because we don't want to pay taxes on it. On that
Yeah.
end of it.
But I'm definitely, I've got some people that are, kind of sitting on the sidelines and thinking, all right, well, do you think there's going to be a crash? Do you think there's going to be a crash? I don't know. I don't see any crash in the foreseeable future, at least for the Charlottesville area. All the writing on the wall says we're going to have a lot of people that still want to come to our area because of all the, for Albemarle County especially, it's difficult to develop, but I think that's also one of the greatest benefits of the area is that it's going to look like this, in perpetuity for as much as possible.
Well
as
said.
long as possible. The conservation easements that are all throughout the land, it's really limiting development, and they've got the high growth areas, but, when you're driving from high growth area to high growth area, you're looking at big, beautiful pastoral countryside farms and all that. So it's, or just, undisturbed woods. So that really makes a big difference to a lot of people, and I think it's one of the big factors that drive a lot of immigration into this area from larger metropolitan areas.
Joe Miller, watching the program, says Pigeon Top is amazing in all caps. He's in the mortgage business right there. He offers Josh Tracy some props
Hey, Joe.
on his Facebook page. Ann Clark Ramey has a question. She says, Keith, what do you think about the Fluvanna Board of Supervisors R4 rezoning issue?
How much time we got left? Yeah.
Set the stage for it first.
Yeah, so Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors, I'm not exactly sure how we got here, how this actually percolated. I believe it was started by the planning staff on that, but the short version of it is they are looking to change the density on their R4 zoning from 2.9 to, I think it's almost 5 if I remember the number right. So look, the reality to that is it's really only going to affect one, I believe it's just one piece of property, maybe 2 pieces of property. I think some of the folks are concerned about that because they think at Lake Monticello, because it's R4. So the only real parcels that are R4 in Fluvanna County are Lake Monticello. A little bit of history. Fluvanna County created an R4 because they didn't know what to do at Lake Monticello decades ago. Right? So they created this special R4 zoning. So I live at the acres. I got a 2-acre parcel, right? I've got a single family detached on that. I'm in R4. If that gets approved, I can't go magically put 4 more, well, I guess 6 houses or 8 houses or whatever the math is on my property, because the covenants and restrictions in the HOA document says there only can be ever one single-family detached home per lot. So I could never do anything more on my 2 acres than what I have. It, to me, seems like there's a lot, and this is my personal opinion, they're spending a lot of time and money to change something that really doesn't need to be changed for one piece of property. But I'm going to actually attend the meeting to see what they're going to do. Because if we want to, outside of Lake Monticello, most of Fluvanna County is A1, agricultural. So it's going to have to be rezoned anyway through that process. So I really don't quite understand the why it's happening and why all this money is being spent for 1, maybe 2 parcels. It just doesn't make sense. But that's my 2 cents worth.
I like it. Multifamily. The topic of multifamily is coming the feed on the chat, including townhomes and condos and the role they play for creating wow, my phone is blowing up. The role they play for creating affordability. Then I'll get to the next topic that was just sent to me via text. I got a similar text to what you just got from someone in the game. First, condos and townhomes for affordability. Your thoughts on that for Charlottesville and Central Virginia? Do we need more of them? Josh Tracy.
Yes, definitely. Now, can you convince a builder to build them? And, this is a whole nother can of worms that maybe you've covered on a different show with the upzoning for Charlottesville. But the way I kind of see it playing out, the likeliest lots of a flat 0.2 acre lot may end up with a single building with, 4, 5, 6 units, and it sort of has a condo model. For a governing HOA, how do we actually establish separate ownership of this unit within the lot?
So I've done, for a future show, I've done some ROIs and performers on that.
Yeah.
I've been working on it for about 2 months, and exactly that, picking apart a couple of lots. It's not going to have a huge impact on units,
and,
unfortunately.
We had, I went to a meeting that had somebody speaking from the city of Charlottesville and maybe the Economic Development Office. I can't remember the guy's name, but the takeaway from that was
it Alex?
I can't remember his name, but the takeaway from that was they've put all this upzoning into other cities, and then the actual adoption rate of what's built 10 years after the change is a lot less than what people were worried about.
Yeah.
So mostly because it's a limiting factor for, is the investor and builder going to take that risk to build these units?
And
can they find the unit that's right for them?
Are they
actually got proof of
creating
that.
affordability, or are they going to want to build something that's going to draw in a higher-end buyer to get more bang for their buck on what they're selling them for? You're not going to get more Turtle Creeks. You're going to get a much different model of what you're actually seeking.
That's what we've been saying.
I was in Seattle. I'm part of a national cohort working on this, and I was in Seattle for a couple of reasons. But very interesting, there's a neighborhood called Maple Leaf, which is exactly the same as Belmont. Same size, same grid pattern. Every 10 streets, there was 1 unit done that way, right? So every 10 streets, every block going over. But it's interesting, every 3rd house had converted a garage into an Airbnb.
That's what I think we'll see more of.
That's
is
what
the granny flats
you're
and
gonna
the
see.
ADUs.
That's what you're going to see.
Yeah,
That's what
but
you're
the
gonna
problem with the ADUs, and I got a buddy that's trying to do this now, you guys try to build a 400 square foot tiny home in your backyard, you're looking at like 150 to 200K to build that in the backyard.
Too much site work. What do you do with the toilet?
It's so expensive.
When I'm talking to people about land, I'm like, you got to solve the water question, you got to solve the sewer question, and
Plus
sometimes that's
connection
$50,000 right there.
But they're doing it with that price point because Airbnb, they're getting it, right? And that's what's happened. If you walk down the street, you'll see every 3rd
A
garage.
$200,000 ADU, though, is not going to create affordability. What a $200,000 ADU is going to become, it's going to become an investment for Airbnb or short-term rental.
Yeah.
Because they go so deep out of pocket to create it, they're going to need the money to make up what they took out of pocket.
I'm just echoing what
yes
you said
and no.
because I've seen it.
I think down the road they actually become utilitized multifamily or multi-generational living quarters. I think initially that's a lot of what those will be, but somebody who turns around and sells that property, somebody who's buying with elderly parents or in any kind of that, in that ballpark of a scenario, those properties become more adopted by that model because I see that as, I think that we're as a country moving back towards a more generational living type
Yeah.
environment.
Because of the affordability.
I have
Good
a,
point.
That's
I have
up
a property
14
that went
that's
under
up-
contract last night in Crozet, and it's the exact thing. They're planning for, we might have to take care of our parents. We're the
Sure.
sandwich generation. We've got kids, but our parents are elderly, and at some point we may want them under the same roof, so let me make sure that I can find a house that can accommodate them.
We're doing the same
And
thing in our
another,
home
Another
right now.
5 buyers that I've
So-
been talking to, some not as active, but would fall into that category.
In the city of Charlottesville, attached, detached, and condos, what's active right now is only 2 available that's under 269, and they're at the Cedars. They're condos, they're at 125 and 145, then it jumps up to 260, 269, and kind of works its way all the way up to a median price of 509. So what's going to happen here is that the price goes up, these garages will be turned into Airbnbs or long-term rentals, and it's going to be used to offset the purchase price, right?
Yeah.
Their monthly payment, right? So, I mean, that's what's going to happen
Oh,
on it.
whatever happened with the Scottsville tire factory? I haven't.
Got shut down.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard
Got to
that
flatten it, brother.
It got,
Probably got to flatten
bummer.
it.
town of Scottsville was not in favor of that development, despite many of the folks in the business community saying we need pedestrian traffic to keep our businesses active and afloat. But
Town manager actually resigned over it.
yeah, Sean Lawless, the
How long
OG,
ago
or
was
Matt
this?
Lawless, excuse me.
I
This
missed
is a
that,
handful of
news
months
cycle.
ago.
Yeah.
Handful of months ago. The OG of Scottsville said no, and the OG won here. Literally, I mean, and I'm not throwing shade here, but this is NIMBY. This is not in my backyard here. Another
I
example.
thought that was going to be.
I thought it was a killer project.
for Scottsville
Killer
and
project.
for Charlottesville, because you might
It's
even
not that
get
far.
a bus line running up and
Yeah.
down that road, and make things easy. But
It would have been killer.
Bummer.
I mean, I put it in perspective this, and I'll get out of the way. Chris watches the program. Chris Henry, friend of the program, Dairy Market, Dairy Central, is trying to build 400 apartments on Preston Avenue. I did a little analysis on this, taking asphalt parking lots and broken down buildings and creating housing for 1.5 people per 400 apartments, or 600 in totality. He's getting stigmatized terribly for just trying to convert broken down buildings into housing, which is what we need. Literally ran into Ludwig Kutner this morning. He was riding around on
Vespa.
on a yellow Vespa
Yeah.
without,
No helmet.
without
No
a helmet
helmet.
on, looking like Santa Claus. Have you
Yeah.
seen him ride the Vespa?
he's a
He's-
pretty legendary figure.
He's smiling ear to ear on this Vespa. He stops and says, "Love the analysis. We need this. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing." Why would people go into this tiger's den and build housing when this is the response?
Well, and you find it super interesting because there's a entire
There was a gentleman in the comments section of my analysis saying, I want to, basically saying, your boxing match. Did you read the comment? He goes, Jerry, I want you to
I don't
square
read
off
the
with me
comments
in a
on
boxing match. I was like, what?
So-
This gets personal.
I saw.
I tell this story all the time. I used to sit in front of podium and to board of supervisors, and I used to have to put restraining orders out on people that would follow my kids around and follow my wives around. They just it gets personal and it gets nasty real fast.
Finish your thought there, Scott.
the number of people who preach about we don't have housing for a large portion of the working class, and that is we're pushing them further and further away. And then as soon as a project like this is tried to be adopted, it then becomes, well, they're just trying to capitalize on these same workers, and it's like we can't have it both ways.
Exactly.
Like somebody has to capitalize, or there's nobody's going to lose money in doing this in order to make it happen. If it's in an area where there's already infrastructure in place to try to take on those number of bodies, with a large part of what's been provided by the University of Virginia, then maybe there needs to be some give on that end in helping accommodate a project like this. But the bottom line is these things are needed,
doing 15
and in
hours
order
a
to
day.
make it happen, somebody has to help move that ball forward.
I mean, it's
You've been
on.
here your whole life, right?
Born and raised, yeah.
Before Dairy Market was built, what was going on at the old Monticello?
McGrady's, dude. I love their cheesesteak sandwiches.
McGrady's,
Buy one, get one
Star
free.
Hill.
I'm actually talking before that.
Star Hill was in there for a hot
Splat
second,
House.
but I don't know. I've been going to Settle Tire for
Sharky's
20
Bar and Grill.
years, and You know,
So the
to me,
same-
that's kind of like, oh, that's Martin Hardware, and what's going on across the street from Martin Hardware. But
I remember
Yeah.
that a lot of people saying somebody needs to do something about this place.
It was the Firehouse run by Earl Smith. It was Sharky's Bar and Grill. I used to hustle pool over there and close that bar down in my younger years. It was McGrady's. There was a Latin grocery and convenience store next to McGrady's at one time.
So I've been here
I don't
since-
think I ever remember anything prior to the cycle of restaurants that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
in there.
So
And
I've
You're
been
that
talking
strip
maybe
for a while.
Monticello Dairy.
I've been here since '87, and it was abandoned for a good number of years, and it was not the best of neighborhoods at that point. The point I'm trying to make is you know,
Well, that was the whole downtown mall was there went through a cycle where that was a post business development. There were car dealerships throughout that area that migrated out in the late
Sure.
70s, early 80s, and that entire business area suffered greatly. Before you had the Omni when downtown what's the building at the end of the block here?
The A&N building?
No, the big new thing where the ice park was.
Oh, Code.
All right,
Code,
yeah.
Joffrey's
the
building.
Code building, that all should be free parking along with a couple other spots in here. In the last 30 years, this entire area has taken on a huge transition.
This used to be a car dealership, Macklin Auto, the Macklin building. These courtyards were the auto bays where cars pulled in.
see
They
it
got
now.
serviced right in here, and then they would pull out the alley between the building and the Nook and Draft Tap Room behind us.
and there was an elevator that
There
brought
was
them
an
up.
elevator. The showroom was here. The hallways are so wide because the cars were pushed down the hallways and put up a service elevator and put on the top of the roof for people to go and tour. Then Mr. Macklin in 1982 converted it to a mixed-use condoed building. This was an automobile dealership.
87, 88, 89. Half of this was boarded up. Half of downtown mall was boarded up. There was like one restaurant. I think you had C&O. There was
Bijou.
no
been around
Bijou.
for a long time. It was even before
This
Bijou.
was-
Yeah.
Bijou was, yeah. It used to actually be called the Metropolitan before Bijou, but
Fellini's was around. Chief was running Fellini's.
That's right.
C&O launched by Sandy McAdams, one of the first. The Finazzos should get some
Hardware
credit.
store.
Sal's Cafe Italia. The Finazzos actually owned or building the hardware store.
hardware store.
is
That
another
was-
example.
Hardware store.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid in that place.
Yeah, the candy
But-
and the beer and the
Getting the
beer
chicken
and
nuggets
boot.
with the basketball hoop
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
dump get.
but this is kind of normally how this works, right? You know, Jesse Rutherford, if he's still watching, right?
Best pastrami sandwiches Charlottesville has ever had.
151, everybody wanted the breweries, everybody wanted the business, and then when it all started coming in, people
Jesse
said,
is
whoa,
still
whoa,
watching.
whoa, 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 too much, you need to slow down. So this is a typical life cycle of stuff like that. Mr. Henry will get through it. I think ultimately something will happen there, but
I mean, he just has to wait till upzoning gets approved. And then he just does it. He's just allowed to do it without getting community
yeah,
impact.
I'm going to get myself.
input.
That's ultimately what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Just sit tight.
Just
and-
sit tight.
and then go to buy right. And any opportunity to get something from the community is probably not going to happen.
What, I'll throw this out there. You guys can go down this road if you want. If
But
not,
this is
we
a
can go to a
common
different topic.
NIMBY thing.
If you want to preserve the character of 10th and Page, we need additional housing around 10th and Page because eventually people's in 10th and Page because of its location. If you build 400 apartments around 10th and Page, the people that want to live in this area will have a place to live, which will help preserve 10th and Page. If we don't create housing around it, the folks that want to live in that block or those few blocks are going to buy the properties that are there.
But it's just, so I wrote a number down. I think our inventory will be where it is between another 5 to 10 years. Not 2004, not 2005. It's for this very conversation. Greene County, a lot's happening right now, but I think they are now pretty much mentally adopting the
Greene County's done.
Yeah, I think there might be a little bit more happening in Greene County. Then Greene County's not going to do anymore. Fluvanna County's not going to do anymore. Louise is not going to do anymore. Do something in Albemarle County, even though they're trying, it's just going to take forever and cost a lot of
Not doing anymore as far as like more neighborhoods,
More
with
development.
water and
Development,
sewer
yeah.
hookups and
Development,
stuff
yeah.
like that. Because I mean,
Donna Price
Yeah.
was sitting where he was sitting last week, and I asked her about 5% developmental area in Albemarle County, and Donna Price said, the current 5% is not fully maximized. Why would we expand the 5% anymore? That's the same thing Diantha McKeel said. Chris Fairchild's come on the show. You were on the show with him while I was away. Chris Fairchild was highlighting the cost of real
Fluvanna
estate. He's a board of supervisor in Fluvanna County. He said they're not going to do any more new development. I mean, Central Virginia is pretty much getting capped here for new development.
But in fairness, that's every place in the United States that I go to. right?
Yeah.
So this is not an unusual.
I almost feel like that needs to be a solution, unless we actually get the political will nationally to say, like, hey, housing is a priority for everybody, and affordable housing is an issue, and we're going to put money towards it, and we're going to have major incentives for developers to build units. Like, I'm thinking like a
was
good model might be
specifically
something
my
like
take on the
the
Chris Fairchild
the
show.
Charlottesville Towers. Like, if you built several of those throughout Charlottesville. I
So-
mean, how many units are in the Charlottesville Towers?
I wouldn't know.
but,
Off the top.
The one right over here off Market, that's a
Yeah,
great location.
Yeah, but
The
You know,
condos.
if you could exactly. There's like a whole bunch of condos, and they're kind of stacked. And you know, I've toured a few here and there, and you know, like that's enough living space for, you know, a couple. Maybe not a family, but it's kind of like the people that are like the people that I know from the restaurant world are having a really hard time staying and
people who serve us have no
affording
place.
Charlottesville. So you know, I feel like a lot of those people have actually migrated out of restaurants because
They can afford to live here.
in the pandemic especially, that was such a reset of priorities that all these restaurant people realized, I've actually got a lot of soft skills that are marketable. I'm going to go
Housing-
and use them someplace else, and now they're doing different things. So that's why some restaurants are understaffed because of that, big migration out of restaurants.
100%.
And because, you know, on the restaurant wage, it's really hard to find a place that's affordable.
Housing is the second largest GDP in the state of Virginia, per the good Dr. Lisa Sturtevant. Number one is the government. If you can tag Michael Guthrie at 2 o'clock, I'm going to be on his radio show talking about the Albemarle County Developer Incentive. And I'll just add to this. I know this because I chair the Piedmont Community Land Trust. In order to sell a home to a 65 to 80% of the area median income, the sales price right now can't be over $215,000, $200,000. That's for a townhome. It costs you about $400,000. Let me get this out. It costs you about $400,000 to build it and put it in the ground. To your point,
And you want to make some money on it.
somebody, exactly right, somebody has to come up with that other $200,000.
Yeah.
And this was the result of a roundtable I mediated, and everybody's eyes just lit up when we put the math together on the table. So somebody's got to come up with that shortfall. Until that happens,
Or is the conversation, and Scott, I know you want to jump in here. Neil Williamson's asking the question, where will the workers live? I had a conversation before the show started with a guy that moved from Eugene, Oregon. Rick Sparks literally said he moved here because of the fires on the West Coast.
Sure.
Came here, moved to Belmont, renting a house, baby boomer. He says, you know what you call a city where you can walk to 4 or 5 coffee shops in less than 10 minutes, but those coffee shops don't have enough workers to stay open? You call it a resort, not a city.
I mean, it's like the issues in ski towns.
Yeah, that's exactly what he was highlighting.
Are
beach
sort of
towns.
playing out around here. It's like, you know, unless they, I want to say even at Snowshoe, they you used to be able to stay at the bottom of a hill in that Snowshoe Mountain Inn, maybe it's called, or something like that. It's like in the valley in Slady Fork, and then you drive up a long road to get up to the top of the hill and go skiing. I think last winter they straight up ran out of places to house their workers. So they said, sorry, the hotel is closed. We're using that for our staff, because that's one of the last places that's owned by the resort itself. There's a whole bunch of private ownership up at Snowshoe, and I think that everything kind of runs on VRBO and Airbnb, and there's a few rooms up there. Maybe somebody on the feed can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was my, you know, quick conversation understanding of it. So, you know, it's like, where do you put the people who are needed and important to make a place run?
I was looking at 4 days at Snowshoe. It would have been $5,000 for the family. I could have flown everyone to Toronto and stayed for the same amount of time and for lesser cost. Hatteras Island has a Dollar Tree or Dollar General in Salvo, Rodanthe area, where they were paying a $200 day per diem to have someone drive from Virginia Beach down and run the register. All of last summer.
so
Wow.
good news,
Yeah.
and some folks in Fluvanna may not like it, but we got 125 apartments coming in Fluvanna County that'll be for 60% area median income and below. That's running about $1,000 to $1,200 per rent. I mean, that will be a place that these
Yeah.
restaurant workers, 125 is a lot, but it's not a lot on that end of it. And you know, some folks in Fluvanna County may not like that it's there, but the reality of it is the people that are serving them, this is a place for them to leave. So to keep it in perspective, 60% area median income are teachers, firemen, cops, that kind of thing. So it probably sometime this next year they'll be available.
Josh, you crushed this, man. You're tailor-made for this setting.
Thank you.
Josh Tracy, Real Estate 3, on fire today. Scott Morris, Ross Mortgage, trusted advisor, someone you can count on to move mountains. Keith Smith, Real Talk with Keith Smith, show archived at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. Yes, Realty Partners. The idea is 4 people at a coffee shop or at a bar shooting the you-know-what about a topic we care a lot about, and that's real estate, that's Charlottesville, that's Albemarle, that's Central Virginia. That's the whole concept of what we do here. Judah Wickower should get some props, the man behind the camera that's keeping us online. He's the director and the producer. Thank you, J-Dubs. The I Love Seville show is up. Wow, it's 11:37. The I Love Seville show is up in 50 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today, and have a good morning.
Josh, thank you, man.
Josh.
Welcome back
Thanks,
anytime,
guys.
man. Welcome back anytime.
Good job. I gotta hit the head up.